not heard any audio from Dave.
Yeah, net control, no audio gain.
Hello?
There you
Hello.
go.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Okay. I was on the wrong sound card. One of the fun things of Linux. Okay. Welcome to March 14th, 2023.
Happy Pi Day.
Yes. For TangerineSDR and HamSci technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been trying to catch up with Tom, installing things, compiling code. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm making progress. So that's it for me. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Dave. It's been a very busy week for me and continues to be so. It's technically spring break here, but we've determined that professors don't go on break the way students do. And we are, so I'm very busy with the last minute logistics for the HamSci workshop, making sure everyone's posters are printed and all things like that. Naturally, we're watching the snowstorm here. I think the prediction says that the snow should end by Wednesday, which I think it will make it clear for traveling on Thursday. So I'm really hoping that all of this goes out without a hitch. Some nice things is I think we really have a good plan. We have a really nice agenda. We have the banquet, I think, is going to be really nice. I met with the AV people today, so we're going to have good AV set up for all of that. Yeah, I'll be happy to take questions from people. I also got my Frontiers paper, which many of you are co-authors on, submitted last Friday night, which is a big relief. Of course, it came back rather quickly with various technical issues of like being over word count, because I used the word count in Overleaf and it was within word count, but it's not the same algorithm they're using for their word count. And they did not tell me how many words I was over. They just said you are over, and they didn't give me any further information. So I'm asking for that. And they asked for there's some other technical things I'm addressing right now, but we're working on that. And the other thing I'm happy, it's kind of special to me, is I actually wrote a chapter for the new ARRL propagation book. And this is my first, this is my very first contribution to an ARRL book. So I got the proof back today. So here's my chapter, and it's got, we've had a number of people here give some input and contributions, and it includes a lot of the figures from the papers that I've published over the past year or so. So it's a couple of years. So I'm very excited to be a part of that.
I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Thanks. I can't
Very
wait.
good.
Me too. So I'm very excited. All right, back to the net.
Okay, and next on the list is Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Oh, as I mentioned before, my wife was sick and in the hospital and everything all week, so I have really nothing to report regarding the project. However, she's back at home now and is well enough that unless something goes drastically sideways between now and Thursday, I should be able to make it to the HamSci conference. So looking forward to see everybody there, and 2 of my students will be there as well. So that's a good thing. They had to have a poster, and their poster is a poster that actually won first place in the honors engineering honors program at University of Alabama this year. So good for them. So they'll be there
awesome.
to talk about that. Yeah, very, very awesome.
And you guys are printing your own poster and bringing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, we're bringing it in a tube. Yeah,
If you email me a PDF, I'll post a copy of it on the website too.
I will advise them to do that. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, back to Nick.
Wonderful.
Okay, very good. Next on the list is David in 1HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone on the net. Working on my presentation for HamSci, looking very much forward to getting down there. We're supposed to get anything from 6 to 18 inches of snow tomorrow. But I'm sure we'll be dug out by Thursday when I need to travel. We'll see how the rest of the Northeast does with it. Yeah, that's pretty much what's going on right now. Staying focused. Oh, except for I might be a little distracted right now because Japan is bombing in on 10 meter FT8. So back to net.
Well, very good. Next on the list is Michael, AAAK. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Greetings to everyone listening. My wife got out of the hospital on Friday, CHF, so that was very nice.
Hmm.
And she split in the middle both of my cataract surgeries. So
Oh, is that up in your eye?
yeah, I just had it done this morning.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
One thing that surprised me was the color change. And I was playing around with a prism, and the original eye sees about half of the violet portion of the spectrum. It looks bluish. You know, it's kind of like a day-night mode on a phone.
Yeah.
So that fascinated me because the blue was consistent, but it took away some half of the violet band. Anyway, back to you, Dave.
Okay.
I
Well,
noticed the same thing. I noticed the same thing. One eye, everything looks yellow. The other side, everything looks blue. So it's yeah, good stuff.
very good. Best of luck in recovery of that. So
What?
next on the list is Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Good evening, all. Well, I'm getting set up now to teach the extra class down here. I've got 10 people, I think, enrolled right now, and we figured we could take about 15 in the venue that we've got. Somebody volunteered his late mother-in-law suite in his home, and I went over and looked at it. It looks good. I'll be starting that next month. Hopefully I'll be able to get to some of the workshop this weekend, but my wife's birthday is Friday and my grandson's birthday is Wednesday. So I've got a couple of other things on my mind this week. That's about it. Back to net.
Fine business. Next on the list is Bob, N5BRG. Go ahead, Bob.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you all here. I don't have anything exciting to report. Looking forward to the HAMSI conference. I'll be on it on video. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Yeah, we have
And-
almost 100 people registered on video already.
Yeah. Next on the list is Dan in 4XWE. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, thank you, Dave, and good evening, everybody. No surgeries to report. Skated another week, I guess. Anyway, not much going on here. I did text with Scotty this morning, so he's alive and doing well. It's pretty busy trying to get moved. I think that's his biggest issue right now. And actually, talking about Pi Day, I remember 15 years ago tomorrow on Pi Day, I was actually in Seattle. And it's the first time I'd ever heard of Pi Day. So I saw some guy walking around with a pi symbol on his t-shirt. And I thought, what the heck is that? And then it suddenly dawned on me as well what was going on. So a little slow, but figured it out. Anyway, back to you, Dave.
Very good. Next on the list is Dylan, KN6IVW. Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, 1 second. Hey, just on the road again, like always, pretty much. Worked on the case a little more, and I am just finishing setting it up to for the printing it in plastic, and just waiting till I can be able to go to Lowe's to get some hardware so I know what stuff to. I'm not sure why I'm speaking so vaguely. All the dimensions of the screws to put in there. So just finishing that up, and then should be able to send the files over. And then real quick, I did send the quote in, and I had for the metal 3D printing, and someone called me back on that, and they were saying that when you order more of them, they actually give a pretty heavy discount on that. So if you at least order 100 in each batch, they you'll get around $100 per case. So that's gonna be all for now. So I'll send it back to Net Control. Have a great day, guys.
Okay. Next on the list is Jeff, K4DOL. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, so I know I'm new to the group here, and just kind of, this is my first Zoom meeting with you guys. Just want to give a quick background. Retired 18 Echo Special Forces communicator. Still teaching much of the forces out there that are doing ham, or not necessarily ham, but HF. And some of the things that we have been running into, and which has kind of pointed me toward the direction of y'all's group, is that a lot of the HF techniques that we teach to these guys are older, 1929s, 1930s, 1960s type ham, or HF atmospherics, and the ionosphere has changed much since that time. And so I am trying to delve into a world beyond my knowledge, where we're trying to relearn the ionosphere and the anomalies that go along with it. And so I'm hoping to learn a lot from you guys, and that way I can pass on to our forces. One thing I will say is that for the first gentleman that was mentioned, that his father was lost at 94 years of age as of February 14th. If you guys look over my shoulder here, that was my grandfather. He was a U.S. Navy mechanic for the Corsair. He died February 14th. He was one of my best friends. So he was 93 years old when he passed. So I know how that guy is feeling. I know kind of what he's going through. I'm trying to get caught up with you guys, going through, reading through all the cliff notes, trying to build myself up, get caught up with where you guys are at. I'm in no way, shape, or form at the educational level as what most of you guys are. However, I do come into this fully, prepared to take notes, learn as much as I can, and that way I can pass it on to our training environment in the military, because we are not only teaching, the Army, we're actually a SOCOM unit, so we're teaching all SOCOM entities, so U.S. Navy, Army, Marines, and of course Air Force. Those guys are pretty much the leading of the spear, the Air Force. So appreciate you guys letting me in on this, and look forward to learning as much as I can from you guys.
Nathaniel, do you want to pitch the conference? And then also, if you go to Dayton, many of us will be at Dayton in May.
Sure. It's really nice to meet you, Jeff. Thanks a lot for joining us. As you probably are aware of the Hamsci workshop we're having this weekend. Are you aware of this?
So I've seen it, and I do plan on trying to catch into as much of it. And one last thing I should throw out there is that I do have, you know, I have a 19-year-old, 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. However, my 19-year-old, she's heavily involved in college softball, and she plays for Methodist University, who I will have to say I was going to try and take pictures to post to the groups, because I did realize that many of you do teach at the University of Scranton.
Mhm.
Scranton whooped us. So
Oh, no.
I was gonna post that for you guys and
Oh, that's
say,
funny.
yeah, they
So-
beat us like 9-6. So
Oh, wow.
it was funny, but
Those Royals.
usually my weekends are tied up in softball. However, this weekend I will not be. So hopefully I can attend most of the meetings.
That's great. And it will be up recorded as well. So that'll be
Yeah.
good. And I did I remember, chatting with you on email as well. So it was
Right.
nice
Right.
having that exchange. In fact, I get so many emails. I had a half written email to you that we were talking about Dave Fiedler. The way,
Right.
yeah. So the way I
And-
met him, you have a copy of his book there?
I do actually, right right here. So
Look at that.
yeah, I even paid the $14. Not really, it was just a downloaded PDF,
Right.
but it does have the $14 at the top. So
Yeah. So the way I met Dave Fiedler is that when I was in college, I started working at Boy Scout camp in New York, and he was one of the people that volunteered at the scout camp. So that was
okay.
just how I met him, and I met him and a number of other very interesting people just working at the scout camp. So so I know him, and then when I was at Virginia Tech, I was a grad student with Matthew Sherburne, who is
Yes, I'm actually in contact with Matthew a lot on Signal
Oh, good.
audio. So
Well, pl-
we're in a pretty good big group for HF comms.
Well, please tell him I
Um,
said hello.
Will do. Will
Okay,
do.
and then yes, yeah, so it's a nice connection there. And then do you know Ben Vitfleet as well?
I don't believe I recognize the
So
name for that one.
you should read Ben Vitfleet's papers. I can send you actually I can send you a copy of the paper that we wrote that just includes a review of a bunch of his work, but he does
Okay.
a lot of updates. He got his PhD a couple years ago, and he's at the University of Twente now up in the Netherlands. But he basically picked up the NVIS research kind of where Dave Fiedler left off.
Okay.
So,
Hey, that's the hardest shot to
Yeah.
make. I mean, I've been doing this. I stress to my students as much as possible that, experience cannot take the place of any calculation you can derive. However, you have to have a starting point somewhere. And, some of the stuff that they have come up with the Nivis shots have really helped our student. We went from 30-foot in the air dipoles where even the transmission line wouldn't reach down to our radios. We're trying to, hey, listen, do you really think you need to be 30 feet in the air? Well, 496 divided by the frequency is like, yeah, well, that's that's great, but that's not exactly where we're starting on this one. And
Yes.
so it's really helped us out a lot.
Right.
And so, like I said, I hope to learn a lot from you guys, because you guys are so far advanced in this, and I'm just along for the ride. So
Well, thank you.
I had a question. You have a 4 call sign, but are you in 4 land or are you somewhere else?
I'm in North Carolina.
Okay.
I'm still in Fayetteville. I'm actually
Okay.
one of the unicorns,
Yeah.
I graduated basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia, which I grew up in Valdosta, Georgia. So I took a bus to Fort Benning, Georgia, and then went to airborne school. So the first time I ever flew in my life, I jumped out of the aircraft and then got sent to Fort Bragg, and I've been here for 25 years.
Yep.
So
Well, I just also want to let you know there are people on this call from all over the country. I happen to be in Missouri. We have Alabama, 2 Alabamas, Pennsylvania, 2 Pennsylvanias, a couple other guys from Missouri. We have California,
Oregon.
New Hampshire, Oregon. So we're all, and Northern Arizona. So
well, Oregon, I need to get with you later because you're my last state I need for my 50 states. For so just kidding, but yeah, that's my last state I need to get my 50 states for QRZ.
yeah.
So
North
But
Carolina,
thank
is
you.
my old stomping ground. My mom was from Elizabeth City / Kitty Hawk area.
Okay,
A
yeah.
lot of our people were Coast Guard, and they used to play peekaboo with the U-boats, German U-boats during World War
Ooh.
II. And you had to be careful to make sure you black out your curtains, otherwise you might have a shell come in through your living room from a U-boat.
Believe it or not, they say they had a Russian spy sub off the coast of Norfolk, which is where my headquarters is out of. I actually work for the Navy now. So I kind of flip-flopped once I retired. So now I work for the Navy, but that was some of the intel that we got, was there was a Russian spy submarine.
I wouldn't be
off-
surprised. I mean, that's an exposed coast there.
Oh yeah.
My parents were Elizabeth City, Kitty Hawk, and Cape Hatteras, that area, very exposed. And my dad did a lot of work developing avionics for fighter aircraft during World War II. That was his thing.
Okay.
He was
Awesome.
he was critical civilian he didn't join the army, but he provided for the Department of Defense.
Well, that was my grandfather. He worked out at NAS Jacksonville, and he was a mechanic for the F4U Corsair. And so he is a big fan of Black Sheep Squadron. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the TV show.
Yeah.
But that's what they flew, was the Corsair aircraft with the
I'd like to break in here and pull us back to the roll call and finish
yeah,
that.
sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay. So next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Nothing to report, just checking in and seeing what's new. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. And let's see. Next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Dave. Boy, back to snow. We've got
More
rain.
snow.
We've got soaking rain coming to wash away at least the rest of the snow on the roof, and probably going to melt a bunch and look out downstream or downhill. So it's going to be wild out here for a couple of days. But Michael, cataract surgery, I was absolutely delighted with the results of mine. One thing that I did is the right eye was done first, and it didn't focus out at infinity where they told me it was going to. And I mentioned that to the surgeon when he came in to talk to me before the left eye, and he very slightly changed his prescription or whatever. And the left eye focuses at distance much better than the right eye initially did. Now the right eye has slowly tried to catch up, but anyway, just something that went on. And Gary, what's with that monocular on your picture there?
Well, that's a bit of a musical joke, Joe. There was a musician called Thomas Dolby, and his album, that's an album cover, is called Blinded by Science. So that was it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Very good. Okay, next on the list is okay, Jonathan, KC3 EY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. Been a fairly busy week for me. This week we had quite a lot of whistlers. Which was much more than last March, which we didn't really get much of any, but I attribute that to the ground line being removed and the noise floor being much lower than it is. We also had some geomagnetic activity. We're going to be having some more. So I was looking at that and thinking about the science questions that come with that sort of thing, which is something I want to bring up in my presentation at the HamSci conference. I was also working on programming with GNU plot, and one of the reasons why that I like it so much is you could write a script which can run on any system. That's very lightweight, doesn't need a lot of dependencies, and it produces a plot that kind of looks like something that you would get on a Unix system. So maybe that's why that I like it so much. But I wanted to visualize some data for my presentation, and GNU plot did a really nice job once I was able to get the script working. But I'm continuing on with my presentation. There's quite a lot in it, but there's a lot of visualization and a lot of things to kind of show off, because I wanted to showcase the BLF system, but not only just the BLF system, but what you can do with it. What are the results? And it's been over a year since the install, and it has been working quite well with a lot of really good results, and I'm really happy with them. So I wanted to showcase them in my presentation, and also I'm working on my 3-channel VLF system, which would take the place of my existing one. So instead of just E field, we can have a orthogonal 2-channel H field receiver, also gathering data. But the challenge is getting the phase equalized between the two. That's kind of a calibration challenge, and that's something that I'll have to figure out. And also I recently got an upgrade to my personal Wi-Fi network. I finally was able to get a Wi-Fi 6 access point from Cisco, so I have a new toy to play with, which I always enjoy. Other than that, that's all I have. Back to the net.
Okay. Next on the list is Dave, KD0 EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Not a lot that I would report at the moment. I'm just kind of trying to get ready for the meeting. And but that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay. And
I do want to jump in really quickly.
go ahead.
Message. Majid did do a beautiful job of making a PVC pipe enclosure to bring to the Hamside workshop, complete with the full level on top and little connector on the side. So you will have that for you.
Okay. Yeah, I was just reading something I got from Hillman asking me if I was going to bring my magnetometer kit. And I had replied yes, thinking he meant kit in the sense of the British sense of stuff, you know. and then I thought he might be. It occurred to me he might be referring to a complete kit package of some sort, and I don't know. I don't have exactly a kit. I have bits and pieces that I can demonstrate.
I think what
how
you
it
have,
works.
I think what you have plus what Majid has, I think you'll be good.
Good.
Yeah,
That'll
I can't
do.
remember. I don't remember if he actually printed out the 3D printed piece. I'll see if I can, hopefully I can check with him tomorrow. And if he hasn't, he might still have a chance to print one out.
Yeah. Well, you know, there'll be a final assembly guide, I'm sure, for users, because, but I want to convey the, you know, the basics.
Right.
So, all right. Thank you.
Okay. Next on the list is Michael, AC0G. Go ahead, Michael.
Good evening, everybody. Nothing much to report. Trying to stay active on Whisper. Started the elements of a magnetometer construction and started the elements of some remnant Grape 1 assemblies. So I hope that will end up being useful in the end. Certainly, it's an education for me. Back to net.
Okay. And next on the list is Phil in 7 FWL. By the way, Phil, I worked for Oregon State for 7 years. Just as a and a sidebar.
Yeah. Well, I'm up in the Portland area, so I don't have much interaction with the U's in let's see in Eugene and such. So anyway, so here I am. I'm here. I'm available. I'm willing to help. Another new guy. So you know, I'm going to be splitting my attention between the Hamside workshop and the Sarah workshops that are going on at exactly the same weekend. So I look forward to seeing what's going on more with you guys and getting in more technical detail. I'll have to, I haven't been spending a lot of time on the website, but I'm going to have to start doing that, start getting caught up on what's going on. But I'm interested in helping. So, you know, I'm an electrical engineer. I can do stuff, build circuit boards, whatever, that kind of stuff, you know. So make use of me.
Yeah. Well, I think now that we're getting the kit together for the magnetometer, we should be able to sell you one and ship one out to you. So
sure, glad to do it. Glad to do more than that.
Yep. Oh, there's things to do. So jump in when you see something you feel like you'd like to work on. Next on the list is Tom in 5EG in Medford, Oregon.
Good evening, Dave and everybody. It's been a pretty busy week. I was finally able to get the burst mode controller synthesized. And it is, it's 32 bits wide by 8K deep. And it all synthesized correctly and didn't break timing on anything else. So that was good. The project still booted after doing it. I found there's a lot of different kinds of FIFOs in Quartus, and some FIFOs wrap other FIFOs. So a little bit of head scratching, got it figured out. Today I was trying to work on timing for it. I found a small change to make where I can assert the reset bits on the FIFO to essentially clear it, which is like emptying the FIFO out. And so I put in a parallel port on the processor with one bit to clear it. And that broke timing somewhere else. So it's amazing how subtle that is. Most of the day was spent trying to do timing on the FIFO to make sure that it could be clocked at 61 megahertz. The spec on it's 125 megahertz F max. But I think I remember a conversation on this by Phil Harmon about 12 years ago on OpenHPSDR, and I feel like I'm joining the illustrious list of people who are dazed, confused, and baffled by timing closure and synopsis design constraints. I think Phil ended up having to take a class on it to figure it out. I've run about 10 loops through it, and I'm not any further now than when I started. So so anybody who knows anything about SDC synopsis files and can provide guidance would be a real welcome help right now. And looking forward to HAMSI presentations almost done. If the deadline is 1 minute before the presentation, then it'll be done 30 seconds before. So anyway, back to the group.
Tom, question, did you ever go through the recordings by Kurt? I forgot what Kurt's last name was during the OpenHPSDR series.
No, I didn't. Was Kurt the FPGA designer?
Yes, he was a
Okay.
guy, he was from Portland or someplace like that.
Okay.
And he was a guy who worked on this professionally, and he decided to give a class to a bunch of the OpenHPSDR people.
Okay.
And there are recordings of it, and they are on the OpenHPSDR website. So
Okay. I remember downloading those about 10 or 12 years ago.
yes,
And
but
I'm sure they're on a backup of a really ancient Linux system somewhere.
well,
But,
they're still on the website, I believe.
well, that's
And
good. That's good. I will go look for that. And because if it can answer a few questions, that sure would be a big help.
because it would have been technology from the early 2010s. So that's basically what we're still partially dealing with here.
Yeah, I know SDC files have been around for a long time. I suspect there are some issues with making them compatible with Quartus, and identifying pins and nets and nodes and all of that kind of stuff. And so, I know we had a few FPGA folks on the call early on, rounding up one or two of those and having a Q&A session by phone or something would be
Yes.
probably real worthwhile.
I'll take a look and see if I can find them and send you a link.
That'd be great. Do you happen to have contact information for Phil?
Not for Phil,
Okay,
other than I think he's still in Perth.
he's still where?
In
Oh,
Perth?
I meant the guy where these was the
Oh.
Phil Harmon that did the FPGA slideware.
Phil did, and there was a couple people. There's a guy, Richard Koch, who's been working with the Annan people, and
Okay.
he's been doing a lot of stuff, and I've had some interaction with him over the
Okay.
years. So there are people still floating around. one of the other people that did a lot of the work on the open HPSDR group was professor from the University of Texas that was an astronomer. K5SO.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he's now out in New Mexico, I think.
Okay, and he did quite a bit of the FPGA work.
Okay.
So he would be another resource.
Yeah, yeah. I found with Quartus that the documentation always skips like the first 5 key concepts and dives in at about number 6. And so you're scratching your head. It's the name. Well, okay, it's got a name. Is that the name after I define it, or is that the name that it's somewhere in the design that you use to define it, or is that a top level name, or is it a Verilog name? And none of that is explained because I think they assume that most folks would know that stuff.
Yeah.
And so a little tough, but yeah,
so
I'll have an email with you and,
okay,
and get a few references and links, and I'll make a few phone calls.
I'm in the process of trying to catch up with you.
Okay.
Not quite there, but making progress.
Yeah, I put the slides, the graphic slides from GNU Radio into my presentation to show why we're doing test phase 1B and 1C. What's the relevance of those tests and what measurements do you get out of those when you do those? And my plan right now is to try and continue on those 2 test phases on the dev kit. And then once those are done, look at porting the code base over to the actual data engine itself. I did get the data engine on Saturday.
I did too.
Oh yeah, and I got mine too.
Yay.
That's like super exciting.
David, did you get one? David McGaw?
Yes, I did.
Very good.
There's cause for great celebration.
Yes.
Yay.
Very, very
well.
Very
I believe. Oh,
well, while we're thinking boards, I'm wondering if there were a bare board. I wonder if Scotty could populate the connectors for Dylan to use as a model.
Can Nathaniel, do you think you can get a hold of Scotty to ask?
In time for this or in general? I think I think in the future we can try and do it.
Yeah, I was just thinking he doesn't need a operational board, but a bare board with connectors would help him with his case design.
Yeah, we could try to do that.
I do concur.
Very good.
And as some of you know, I am looking for input on project what for, working out the rest of this year of the Tangerine project. Do I go with the no cost extension again? What do I do with those resources I have? So I know Tom told me some things that he needs, but I have to spend those resources somehow. And I could really use some suggestions on the best way to do that.
So I think we're done for the roll call and we're open for general discussion.
Well, do you want to start with my question? Do you have any suggestions on what I should be thinking about?
So didn't this is a question that I believe that Scotty bought some aerial chips. Is that a major thing for him to take out the Max 10 and put those in?
He has a separate grant from ARDC for that.
Okay.
I think that is a major thing. I think I'm looking for things that take what we have here and do whatever we need to do to get it over the edge.
Yes.
so that next year I can go show the program officer, look, we have a working system.
What
But
we
then
need
what about
is,
antennas? What about antennas?
We haven't thought a whole lot about antennas.
Well, there's a place where you may be able to put some funding to good use. Because, I mean, if we're going to, I mean, for the eclipse.
Bill, you're fading out.
I should say that these resources are very specifically, the way they were budgeted, it was for doing a respin of the Tangerine SDR board. So I don't want to spend it on something that's not the Tangerine SDR board until I have working Tangerine SDR boards.
Yeah, keep those funds safe because we will need a respin.
Yeah. So I mean, but they do have an expiration date on it. The expiration date says December 31st, unless I ask for a second no cost extension. So
Well, hopefully we have working hardware by then and know what
Right.
needs to be respun.
well, and that's kind of where I'm going. I need to know, like, I probably could ask for another no cost extension, but I feel like if I do that, I have to have really good justification and have a good plan. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, so the is that a separate grant?
No, this is the main Daisy grant that I have.
But to redo it with the larger FPGA,
Yeah, Scotty has a grant.
that's a different,
Yeah, Scotty has a different ARDC.
that's a different grant.
Yeah. So that's why these resources are specifically for, the Tangerine version 1 project.
Right.
I mean, once we're happy that, we have a working Tangerine SDR and we don't think we need to respin it, then I'm happy to try to use those resources in other ways. But until we, have a good reason to believe that we're safe, I want to.
Yeah,
keep them
well,
for what
I
they
can
were.
predict we will respin
Okay.
because we already know there's some little niggly things on it.
Mhm.
By
Some
respin,
major
you mean
things.
like a second version of the PC board?
And
Yes.
how much will that cost?
Will cost as much as the current board.
Oh, that doesn't really help me. I've kind of lost track of how much the current board actually costs.
Yeah, that'd be a Scotty question.
Okay. And
Yeah,
I feel like
but
that number is, depending on who I've talked to and when, the number is either much smaller than the amount of money I have, or it's much larger than the amount of money I have and not properly matched.
Well, I mean, Scotty may have to make some changes to the board, but he doesn't necessarily have to redo the whole thing from scratch. I mean,
Right.
so,
Yeah, the development cost is lower, but the construction cost would be the same.
well, I mean, we haven't built, how many boards have we haven't built the whole allocation of tangerines that have to be scrapped and rebuilt. I mean, we didn't get that far yet.
Right.
So, I mean, it may be that we need to come up with a new board, but I'm sure that from what I understand, a lot of the components haven't been placed anywhere. They're still sitting in storage and can be
Yeah, that's true.
reused on an updated board.
Right. Because I think when I talked to Scotty about doing this thing before, he was like, oh, it's just a couple $1,000s. And so I have more than that. But I don't think, from also talking with him, I didn't think I had enough to like really kind of do a whole new version of everything. So
Yeah, by a couple $1,000s, he may have meant for the new PC boards themselves, minus components and assembly.
mhm.
Anyway, yeah, you'll have to clear that up with him.
So-
He's the one with the numbers.
Yeah, so that's something I'm thinking about. So if you guys have input. The other thing you can see, I've started posting the posters, the PDFs of posters I have to the ham site workshop page, so you can see link I just put in the chat is a link to Dylan's poster page on Youth on the Air. So you can go take a look at that, Dylan. You can go check it out. I sent it off for printing this morning.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. What did you say?
I started putting the PDFs of the posters on the Hamsci Workshop website. And I put your Yoda poster. I put a link to it in the chat. So you can actually go see your Yoda poster on the workshop website now.
And I was going to make a poster. I should have told you this earlier. I was going to make a poster for the case, but because I couldn't finish it in time for you to submit them to the printer, and then also I couldn't really think of a whole lot to put on the poster besides just pictures.
Yeah.
So I think
you'll just bring a hopefully 3D printed version.
Like doing a just the poster for the Yoda, or the poster and a TV for the Yoda stuff. So because I was kind of hoping to play a video, the 2023 ad for the for this year's Yoda camp.
Okay.
And then on that TV, and then on the second one, play just a slideshow of the photos that I took while I built it.
That should be great.
So
yeah, I think that'll be just fine, Dylan. So I did order I did order a bunch of TVs on rolling carts, so to use at the workshop. So yeah, I said I would give you one of those. So yeah, I got 6 of them. I think if I give you one, I think 3 are spoken for. So
if you don't have 2, I'll make that work also. Not that it won't be that big of a deal. So
so you want a second one? Okay, I'll see how I get set up on Thursday. What time do you get in on Thursday?
So I just got the thing, the sheet for transport. Let me pull it up real quick. My recent's not there. Come on, find it. There it is. Sheesh, that's right. I can't view it on this one. I think it was around 12:55 is when I get off my flight.
Okay.
And then get there at around 1.
Well, I should be around in the afternoon. So on campus, because I'm going to be meeting with my students and the physical plant people Thursday morning, and we're going to be doing like all the table setup and the poster setup and everything. We'll be kind of doing the setup as we go. So if you want to come in, once you get set up in the hotel, you can come over to campus and you can kind of get yourself set up so you see what the situation looks like over there.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So
that brings me to a question. Thinking ahead, just wondering if people might be thinking of dinner for Thursday evening.
Yes, so I'm planning on going over to the Trax bar and grill, which is right in the hotel. Probably sometime around 6 or 7 or something. And I'm hoping we have all the details worked out sufficiently and that everything's good, that I can just kind of hang out there with you guys and with Rachel for the evening. So they have a really nice little bar and grill right in the back of the restaurant, right in the back of the hotel.
Oh, okay. That sounds good.
Yeah, I really like their I really like their fish sandwich over there. They've got good hamburgers. And
yeah, I'm hoping to get in around 6, but you never know.
if you're Catholic like me, the Bishop of Scranton officially today gave a dispensation for meat for St. Patrick's Day this year. So
Oh,
they
that's right.
actually-
It's on Friday. Oh
I
dear.
know. So, but we actually have an official dispensation. But they're from the local bishop.
Oh, corned beef, that's what
Corned
we
beef, yeah. I actually planned the menu so there were enough like fish and kind of other options to cover people. So that way too. So it would have been okay either way. But it is actually nice that yeah, that's not an issue. And being that we're a Jesuit university too, we have to.
Well, those of us with heart disease need to eat the fish anyway.
But there you go. Yeah. But I'm very excited about all of it.
Nathaniel, I have
Yeah.
a personal request. I
Sure.
have a new Rigol spectrum analyzer. I'm having some trouble with it. Does anybody here have any experience with Rigol spectrum analyzers? Okay, I guess not. Thank you.
Segment, yes. Rigel, no. But what kind of problem are you having?
How to operate it. Basically, it says you're supposed to be able to use a mouse to move the pointer around the peak and null pointers. And I just simply
Right.
can't do that. And they have a very cumbersome way of moving the markers from peak and null to wherever you want them. So I'm just looking for somebody that's been through that battle, and I'll jot them a note and let them worry about it. Let them answer me.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you,
Find
David.
their field applications engineer.
Right, right.
I actually had some worked with Siglent on one of their newer units.
Well, this one's got an awful lot of options, but
Yep.
I need to be able to mark the peaks and the nulls, and it's not working.
Yeah, that's the one thing about the Chinese instruments is that the software is a work in progress.
I have heard that something about the Asian or Oriental or whatever culture hinders them making good software.
Well, to Siglent's credit, they were soliciting people to work with it and give them feedback, and maybe Rigol's the same.
I'll check around. I need to find a user group, and I haven't found one yet.
Right.
Anyway, thank you.
Isn't the value determined by how complex it is? If it's something that's simple to operate, it's seen as lesser value.
Oh, yeah, okay. I hope not, but whatever.
I can ask around about that. We have a bunch of guys that we work with that do EW and they work with spec annies. I don't know if Wrangler's one of them, but maybe by the next time we meet up, I might have something for you.
Well, what the manual says, the user guide, whatever, is you click on it and then you can move it wherever you want to. Basically, good luck.
Huh.
Maybe my mouse doesn't like their equipment. I don't know.
Maybe you have a different version.
That's possible.
Check the firmware version.
Right. I've got the latest
Yeah,
one.
I also know that NASA buys Rigol, so
really?
yeah.
Wow.
Everyone. This is Randy.
Have you tried with a different hardware, different mouse, and some, substituting some things, maybe some incompatibility or something broken on the mouse side?
The mouse works for everything else, or everything else I've tried. You're supposed to be able to click. It's either a touch screen or a mouse, or there's a bunch of buttons to push to get the same result. And all three of those work pretty well. The part that doesn't work is trying to move those little markers from one peak to another. And though the buttons don't always work in that regard, which is why I'm trying to get the mouse to do it.
Is it a wireless mouse versus a hardwire mouse?
Actually, I'm using a wired mouse. It's just what I had sitting in a box unopened, brand new mouse. But it's been
Copy.
around a while. I mean, it sat in that box for, I don't know, 10 years. I'll get hold of the field rep. I've got a name and an email address.
Into CUA. Kind of practicing doing some videos here. I decided I was going to start uploading some videos to.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing that very well.
Somebody's got an open mic.
Okay. Okay, well, anyway, well, thank you. I'll get hold of the tech rep and see if they've got some ideas. That's an interesting tale you came up with here, Nathaniel, about the dispensation for St. Patty's Day.
Yes. You know, I heard they were doing it in the Newark Archdiocese where my mom lives, but I didn't know they were doing it in Scranton until today.
I've been diagnosed borderline gout. In other words, I'm up at the top of the normal range for uric acid. And so it's a little concentration on poultry and fish here.
Hmm.
So on your funding question, I'll make a couple of comments to you about that.
Mhm.
You know, you're gonna potentially need to respin it to make the corrections, I guess, and hopefully anything that needs to be pushed around or component changes. So you got that to deal with.
Right.
And the second issue might be the science. What have your results been so far on what you've seen or data that's come in either from this unit or other units
Yeah.
that might drive you to think that you want to change the science, like for instance, the bandwidth of the system.
Mhm.
But then you also have the issue of the development effort that's taken to get you to this point.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do anything that's going to cause too much software to have to be rewritten or
Right.
any engineering type work that needs to be done by volunteers that are slow about getting it completed.
Yeah. And I mean, this is where it's this balance of like, what can I actually do with this funding and with the amount of funding I have and the amount of time we have too. As I said, if I'm going to use if I'm going to ask for another no cost extension, I better have a good plan. So
Well, have you got enough information out of the one that's in front of us in terms of feedback to know that it performs the way you want it to, I guess?
I think the answer to that is no, because we just received it. We just received the piece of hardware last week. And so, you know,
that's almost your excuse for why you might want to get an extension to get real feedback on how the performance is on the current unit to decide.
But you say you have that through December, right?
Yeah.
We should have a good idea what's going on by then.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I think that's the way to go, is to basically say, okay, yeah, we're going to, keep pushing ahead with what we have now. And we still hang on to these funds. And I think I probably let the program officer know that we're in this phase where we actually have the hardware now, which was so hard to get because of the chip shortage and everything. But, we won't really know what to do with the rest of the money until we get through this testing phase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I think for me right now, it's just a waiting game.
By the way, something completely different. I keep trying to get Japan. 10 meters has faded out. 15 meters is getting weak, but it's definitely a case of asymmetric propagation because I can hear them, they can't hear me. I wonder how we can work that in, because that is a fascinating part of this for me, is the fact that communications is asymmetric. It's really not bouncing off a middle point.
Couple of years ago, I spent an hour listening to a Mongolian station calling, what is that, JT 1 or 4, I can't remember, but calling CQ for an hour. I yelled, I screamed, I hollered, and nothing. And it was either what you're speaking of, asymmetric propagation, or it's just that I have a quieter location and I was hearing him. And this was on 30 megs where I was running 100 watts and didn't really feel like cheating and turning
Right.
on the amplifier. But I've heard exactly that problem with Mongolia. Haven't heard him since.
Oh, I see. It's a magnetic anomaly.
Possibly.
It could very well be.
Well, it did occur to me that we might be able to use the software that Nathaniel's team came up with that does ray tracing to show how a signal could be refracted in one direction, but when you try and send it back in the other direction, it doesn't go to where the originating signal.
Right.
I mean, when like the ionosphere is a slant at a slant, and you're bouncing off it in a certain way.
Yeah, because the thing is, we're not bouncing off flat metallic layers. We're bouncing off of wafting electrons.
It's through a volume.
Right.
I like the word
And
waft.
your takeoff, you could be the signal can be coming in from one angle, but your signal going out is going up at a completely different takeoff angle, and so you're hitting a different point in this, and then especially someplace in the Far East where you got to be just right to get all the multiple hops right.
Yep. But you would think that if you're running the same power and the antennas, they're reciprocal. If you hear them, they'd hear you, but it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. No.
So can I ask a question here? And this is part of me being, not as well educated as you guys. When you send your signal from your station, from your sending station to your distant station, depending upon the amount of energy that you are pushing your signal from, could that affect the ions or the electrons rather in the ionosphere in order to excite them to a point where they would bounce around each other, thus dissipating your actual signal through the charge of exciting the electrons and not returning your signal?
The short answer is yes, but it takes megawatts.
That's
I
why
was
you
going to
have,
say my signal doesn't even remotely compare to what the sun is doing to those ions up there.
that's
So
why you
what-
have systems like HARP.
Yes.
Yes.
It's an active modification.
So
but they
that's
use
one
megawatts.
HARP
So
will do it,
that's-
but your
that's-
ham radio or your standard military grade, transmitter is not.
So that's one we work with. And so HARP we do work with. However, we also work with standard radio of 10 watts max, peak envelope power is 10 watts. However, we have been able to make communications from north of the 35th parallel. So Arctic Circle, we've been able to make communications. However, Marines like to go in and they use 400 and 500 watt amplifiers and they cannot make communications. So that has been a hypothesis of mine, is that maybe they excite those electrons too much and then thus they do not return their signal to Earth.
Well, no, that wouldn't be the case because we
No.
have hams that use up to 1,500 watts, and
Right.
they are the big guns.
Right.
They are the loud signals. Now you're not saying what antennas or what frequencies they're using. Frequency has everything to do with it. If you got the right band, 10 watts will get around the world. If you got the wrong band, megawatts won't.
So that is where I'm at, where I can say, okay, listen, this is where I would work, but that's not necessarily where the soldier that's in the field is operating. And of course, you got to remember he's going based off of whatever his frequency manager that he, requests frequencies from, and they give him a primary and an alternate in order to make communication. So,
well, you have
it's a lot of variables in there, but
well, the ionosphere is the primary variable, and you have to set your frequency that you're using according to that. Now, down in Antarctica, we'd have field radios, HF radios, and we had 3 different frequencies to try. And you'd use one or the other, or do it on the basis of what you could hear and what was propagating. But it also, is very dependent on time of day. Daytime is entirely different than nighttime propagation.
Absolutely. And now we're even coming into, and this is what I was talking about during my intro, was now we're starting to feel the effects of the equatorial ionospheric anomaly. So
right.
Or plasmic blobs, I believe is some
plasma bubbles
that physicists are starting to call them. So
yep,
we're starting to see the effects of that crossing the equator. So those are things that we're running into, and I'm hoping that not only to contribute to the Tangerine here for Nathan, but also to learn more from you guys on things like that. So like when he talks about antennas for the Tangerine, I mean, I got antennas for days, so I can definitely hook you up with some antennas. I can come up with some antennas for you. So
we have all manner of antennas, but the idea for us is to come up with something broadband.
Right. And so one of our systems we work with is a hub and spoke system. So the hub obviously has to have a broadband antenna, and we have numerous of those that we operate with. So
yep.
For a broadband antenna, we were forced to put an antenna on the roof that we would have someone commercial put up and not ever be able to go up there and fool around with it. They didn't want us climbing a very rickety ladder. Most of us are kind of getting up there in years. Didn't want us climbing a rickety ladder up to the roof of the building. And so what we selected was one of those folded terminated dipoles. And that covers from something like 2 or 3 megahertz up to 10. And it was acceptable. And the 3-to-1 maximum SWR antenna matching circuit on the particular radio we were using would handle that any place between about 1.8 and 30 megahertz.
Yeah, we use Barker Williams folded dipole antennas.
Right.
We use
this is a larger version of that.
The Wolf folded dipole. One of my favorites though is the 1K Whiskey. It is a if you've ever seen the LFH 230 fan light antenna, it is a omnidirectional out to 2,000 mile antenna. However, it has a shorter footprint, and I can get my hands on one of those and loan out for testing purposes. These are things that I have access to.
What's the name of that antenna?
It's a 1K whiskey. It's built by White Wolf Antennas.
Is that a vertical?
It is I don't know the actual nomenclature for it. So it has on each side, it comes down, it has 3 transmitting elements, then it goes down to terminating resistors, and then has at the base of it, it has the reflective elements that come back. So the ground planes. But it's built by White Wolf Antenna Systems. It's called the 1K Whiskey.
I find one that's just whiskey by White Wolf.
Yeah, that's it.
It's an
Yeah.
HF NVIS antenna.
But it is omnidirectional out to 2,000 meter. 2,000 kilometers.
Well, that would
Wow.
depend on propagation.
Yeah, and that's not an NVIS idea. Huh. But yeah, it's a terminated. Yeah, interesting antenna.
It's one of
Terminations are down on the ground.
Right. And it's one of the better antennas that I've actually used. Now, I mean, we
Wicked.
have brought in, like what he said, what the other gentleman was saying, we brought in contractors to build us like Rhodes and Shorts HL 451 directional log periodics, things like that, I mean, just blow everything out the water,
Yeah, well, log periodics are broadband, but huge at these frequencies.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So
yeah, you should see the ones they've got down at the South Pole Station.
really, oh, I would love to.
Do you mean the Saber antennas for the Super Darn?
No, I'm talking. They've got some very large log periodics for HF communications.
Oh, okay.
Because since they have very specific directions that they want to communicate, they just build a big antenna pointing in that direction.
That makes sense. Because I know the old Super Darn antennas used a log periodic design as well.
Yes, but those were little. Those are basically high. I've actually got one of that sort that I think 10 to 30 megahertz.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, what they're using now is the terminated folded dipole with a reflector, 90-degree reflector array of wires.
Yeah, they started using that right when I started grad school.
Right, which is a good idea, especially when you have 16 of them lined up.
Mm-hmm.
Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Speaking of antennas, I just wanted to mention, I haven't had any problems with the GPS antenna on the VLF system, and I believe that's because all the trees or all of the leaves are off the trees, and I think the antenna has a much better view of the sky. And I was thinking that the antenna is probably for the times when the trees are on the leaves, it's probably in the wrong place.
Yeah. Well, certainly within the next couple of months, we'll be able to test that hypothesis.
Yeah, I was thinking if we have any more problems, we should think about relocating that antenna.
That sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. That was just something to mention, because for the SAQ transmission and everything else, I've had really good GPS reception.
Yeah.
And if you were to log into the system and run CGPS, you can see that the reception is actually really good. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that before I forgot it.
That makes a lot of sense. We shall see. It seemed like it was in a pretty good spot. I know there's that one tree like right next to it, but I was hoping that would not be a real problem. But
I was thinking about that, and I thought, well, because I've had issues with the GPS before, and I noticed that since the leaves fell off the tree that I have had, or off of your trees, there were like zero problems and really good reception.
interesting.
I'm almost positive that that's
Problem.
probably it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Did you notice? Oh wait, no, you don't have anything else connected to that antenna. That's right.
Yeah, no, that's it.
All right. Yeah. Well, yeah. In the coming months, we could look at, maybe relocating it.
Yeah, I think that sounds good because we do want to make sure we have a good reliable signal in there for that.
Yeah, and I hate to have, a outdoor antenna, go to waste under, in an area where tree leaves block it, because yeah, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but I've had really good reception. Much more usable satellites now than before. I could show you actually on the system. Do a quick share.
You're talking your GPS antenna?
Yeah, our outdoor GPS antenna.
How much of the sky does it see? The one you're worried about?
There are parts of the sky that it doesn't.
Well, it doesn't matter the parts, but how much of the actual sky does it see? Does it see more than half the sky?
I would think so.
It depends. Well, it depends on the tree leaves, because
well, when it's in the summer when the leaves are out.
Yeah,
I would say it sees at least half the sky.
South is more important than north.
So yeah, and the thing is, once it's got its location, if you're talking for GPS lock for frequency, once it has its location, you only need a few satellites. You even theoretically only need one, but I'd prefer like 3 or 4 at a time. But it will do fine with just a few of them.
The Trimble needs better reception.
I don't know why. Trimbles are good.
It's because it toggles between the timing solution and the internal counter during bad reception, and that's the only problem that's evident because it's looking at the rising edge of the pulse per second.
Well, my experience with Trimbles is they have a very good oscillator in them. Depends on the model, I guess. But
the issue is that when it toggles between the two, there's a slight there's that slight jitter which which Paul's VLF software, it misses that rising edge when it kicks in, when it
No, that's not the problem.
it is a problem because
It
I
can't jump that far.
yes, it does. It'll jump by around 1.5 milliseconds.
Well, I think we'll just see what happens as the spring leaves come on,
Right.
and we'll see if it does in fact get worse. I'm hoping that it doesn't, but you know, hope springs eternal. But we will see. If it gets worse, then then we know that we need to consider relocating.
Now there may be a different, depending on how complex its programming is. There are two different ways to handle holdover, and that is, either you jump as soon as you get satellites back, you jump the time, if that's your most important factor. But if you, but you also can have it shift the frequency and drift the time back. And some systems, they give you that choice.
Well, this gives an option. If you set it up, you could turn off the pulse per second if it does not have a timing solution.
That's not what I'm talking about. It keeps the pulse per second going, but you can have it jam the timing when it gets the satellites back to bring it immediately back on to be synchronous. Or you can have it shift the frequency slightly and drift it back in.
The
And
Trimble
what you're
user
looking
guide,
for is,
well, the user guide doesn't have that option.
yeah, but usually they don't jam sync it. That's something you have to turn on.
I was
that
looking for
can
the
be
options
disruptive.
with Gary Miller, and he also noticed the that it didn't have any of those options. I don't know why that it doesn't. I would like to test the Res 720, but for some reason the Res SMT 360 it has this horrible problem that's unfortunately only evident with the application that I'm using it with. Otherwise, under good reception, it's a pretty good receiver.
Yeah, well, that's too bad. And if it does cause that much trouble, I've got a lot of Trimble Thunderbolts, for instance, which is a very reliable GPS DO system. I've never seen it jam sync it. I can't remember if it has that option, but that's not its normal operation.
I'm going to test the SMTX as well to see if that also does the same thing.
Well, I think it is 10:30, so we might call it a night here.
Sounds good.
I think it's been good. I guess we'll see
73.
everyone. 73. We'll see everyone in Scranton or on Zoom.
73 all.
73, everybody. Thank you.
73. See you guys in Scranton.
See ya.
Everyone have a safe trip.
Thanks.